Partying? I don't know. Car crashes?
Number one killer? tobacco.
Drugs or alcohol.
I'm not 100% sure, but I would think it would be something to do with distracted driving. That seems to be epidemic now. Drunk driving.
I would say that social media is making a really big impact on teens and driving. A lot of the kids are at that point where they can't, stand not looking at texting and looking at what's going on with social media.
I think suicide, maybe?
All right.
Texting and driving.
No. If I'd have to guess, it would probably be like... Yeah, I have no idea.
My opinion, the number one killer of teens in the United States would have to be texting and driving, I think.
I would have to say texting and driving.
I would say it would depend on where you live. Could be something about like some type of a violent death, whether it's maybe automobile accidents or perhaps homicides or accidental deaths.
I believe that the number one killer of teens in the United States is actually peer pressure, because it influences us to do many things such as drugs, alcohol, and just things that are in general not safe.
Drunk driving.
I would say excessive drug use.
I think it's probably teenagers who drive and aren't paying attention to what's going on.
I think drug abuse, like of all kinds.
Probably texting while driving.
I would have to say accidents. Car accidents, accidents using drugs, alcohol, anything that has to do with accidents, I guess.
Texting and driving.
I say it's either drunk driving or suicide.
I would think texting and driving.
I'd say drugs and alcohol.
Texting and driving.
I think I've read and seen a lot of places that would be accidents, specifically traffic accidents, probably.
Behind distractions, how additional passengers increase our risk of distractions and crashes, and which distractions are more problematic than others. A lot of amazing stuff. Presenting on this panel is Ms. Andrea Brands from AT&T, Dr. Catherine McDonald with the University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing, and Mr. Jurek Grabowski with the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety. Please join me in welcoming our experts.
If you guys would just like to come up on stage and have a seat. Oh, you're totally fine. Let's start first with Ms. Andrea Brands. Ms. Brands is AT&T's Director of Consumer Safety and Education, dedicated to empowering consumers with tools and information to help them use technology safely and efficiently. In this role, she supervises public affairs programs for the It Can Wait campaign. An animal lover and yoga enthusiast, Ms. Brands has served on the board of Southern Area Rescue Association Sanctuary when she lived in Texas for a brief time and helped launch a nonprofit yoga studio in Chicago, serving on its first board of directors for 2 years. She is a great friend to NOYS and supports the efforts to engage and empower youth to be an important part of the solution to texting while driving. Ms. Brands, we all thank you for your leadership and then for the support of AT&T. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Andrea Brands.
Thank you so much. Well, good morning. Namaste. Yeah. So I'm so excited to be here. I am every year. We've come here a few years now, and thank you for your leadership. You guys are inspiring, and just a round of applause for yourself, and happy Monday morning, right? Yeah. So what we're going to be talking about today is a little bit of research and how it has impacted the AT&T's It Can Wait campaign. So, research. First slide. There's not a clicker, right? Oh, there it is. There we go. Okay. Well, that's largely the sum of my presentation. So I'll just see you later. Everything we do is based on research, especially in a large corporation. Before you spend any money or significant amount of money, you really do want to make sure that you are taking the right steps forward. So every single thing that we do is based on research, and this campaign was no exception. I think you guys have seen all of these stats. We discovered many years ago that teens were texting more than they were speaking on the phone, and we knew that that created an opportunity for us to really make a difference, and we wanted to make a difference that really mattered. So that's why we launched the campaign just a few years ago. So one of the I don't know if I ever told this story before because I've spoken here a few years, but one of the name of the campaign actually came from some focus groups. When we first started out and wanted to learn what people thought about, texting and driving. Do you text and drive? How, what are you texting about? We asked them, to pull out your phone and what's the last text that you sent? And of course it was all these, kind of LOL, haha, be there in 5 minutes, all of those messages that really don't matter when you need to be paying attention to the road. And so one of the participants said, yeah, this really could wait. It can wait. And there was our campaign slogan born. It was just one of those things. It was one of those, it encapsulated everything. And yes, it can wait. Just any distraction can wait when you're driving. And what we also learned was, am I on the right slide? That taking a serious tone seemed to make a difference, because we thought, well, do we take a serious tone? Do we want to inject some humor? What really is going to, drive the message home and make more of an impact? And we discovered by talking to teens and actually from getting, feedback on our sim tour that the somber message, the more serious message seemed to have a greater impact. I'm not sure why that is. I don't think that it's probably much different for teens than it is for adults. But it just is, or at least that's what we had found. So we created a lot of our tools so that we could make more of an impact along those lines. And I don't know, have any of you seen our chair tour? I know you see that we've got the simulator outside, but have you ever seen it in your high school? Because we do go around the country with the chair tour. And I know we've had it at the NOYS Summit before. And one of the guys that runs our tours for us said that, he addresses a lot of teens at a lot of these summits and said, as soon as if I make a joke or as soon as I just, lighten the mood a little bit, I lose my audience. So it's something that, we make sure to take in and poll our people, what are you hearing out there when you're actually talking to folks? Because we don't just want it to be all numbers. We want to know what people are actually seeing and experiencing on the road. And how about our documentaries? I'm sure some of you have seen our documentaries. I know we've had some of our speakers here. Anybody? Oh, come on. Okay, cool. We've got several out now. We've had millions of impressions on those documentaries. We've got 2 now that came out, and we had PSAs, of course, that rolled out from there. And those, of course, take a serious, but it doesn't hit you over the head with a message. It's not preachy. It's very documentary in style, but it does get the point across that, no text is worth a life. And then we also created a speakers bureau, and we've had several of our speakers here at the NOYS Summits to, give that personal experience live, because again, it really does matter. So one of the things we also want to make sure of is that those tools that we have out in the field actually are making a difference. So before someone actually goes in the simulator, they take like a 2-minute survey. And we ask them, do you text and drive? Do you consider this a problem? And most are like, oh, yeah. Those that do say, it's no problem. Yeah, I can text and drive. Then they go through the simulator, and we usually get about a 20-25% bounce up that they agree that they cannot text and drive. So we like to think that we are making an impact. I'm hoping that there's enough of an impact that it will carry on when they actually get in the car and make that decision. But, it's creating awareness, it's creating that message, not only amongst the driver, but, amongst the the passengers as well. And I think we heard earlier today, it does matter when you're a passenger. Which brings us to another great slide that says speak up. One of our polls that we did, we wanted to find out, does it matter if somebody in the back seat says stop doing it? And it does. So your voice does matter. As a matter of fact, the driver said they appreciate it when someone says, hey, I don't like the way that you're driving, or hey, put your phone away, they actually appreciate it. So your voice matters. And, if you don't like the way someone's driving or you want them to put the phone away, tell them to do so. The one thing that we did find, though, is despite all of this and all of these figures that you've seen, is that we're still doing it, not just youth, but adults. And how do we continue to attack this problem? So we're working on solutions, okay? One of our solutions is the Drive Mode app. We're a tech company. We should be doing something in the tech field. So we have a Drive Mode app that's free, and it's been downloaded millions of times. It's a very popular, it's a very simple app. And the one thing that it does do, and this again, something that we researched, it provides youth a way to communicate with somebody that's texting them, because we found that was very important. Whenever you text, you expect a message back pretty fast, right? It's like within minutes. I think it's within 5 minutes, actually, that you expect to receive a message. So we wanted to make sure that our app responded for you and says, hey, I'm on the road. I can't, text you right now. I'll get you when I'm there. And you can personalize it. That's just one of the things that it does. But again, very simple app, but it's a nice tool. And again, creates that awareness that, okay, I'm getting in the car, mindset, going to be focusing on the road. The other thing that we found, of course, social media, incredible tool, probably the most important tool for us on this campaign, because that's where everybody is right now. Instagramming. Where's Noah? He's my Instagram buddy. I follow him all the time. It's great. So we do Instagram, of course. We have lots of Twitter. It's amazing how much those things really do matter. And so we launched this year, in response to that, #X, which is kind of like a Drive Mode in a way, but for social media. Okay, I'm going to be in the car. Got to stop the conversation. #X. That's what it means. It's shorthand. So if you're ever talking to somebody or you're texting someone, or you're out on Twitter, just tell people, hey, I'm going in the road now, #X, and it'll stop the conversation. It's just a nice shortcut, a nice tool. And we hope that people personalize it. This is the other thing. This is the one way that I personalized it. That's Puck on the left. He is displaying #X. Yes. I tried to get Dolly to do it. She's the dog on the right, but she was like, no, what are you doing with my arms? Leave me alone. So I don't know if you can see, but she's got a little X on her bandana. I don't know if you can see the drool coming out of her mouth. That was the only way I could get her to sit still. But anyway, the point is, we really want people to take this campaign, personalize it, and make it their own. So we found that was another way we got folks incredibly engaged when we just said, hey, here's some tools, go take these messages and run with it. And the best ideas we've seen come from youth, and come from our managers who are out in the field and work with you guys. Some really creative stuff, that we never would have thought of. So a lot of times it's just, getting out of the way and letting things happen. The other component, celebrity engagement, again, very big. Demi Lovato, James Maslow. We had the band Rixton perform this year because we had a Twitter contest, and the high school that got the most tweets with #X won the concert. So it was a lot of fun, great payoff. So everybody was happy, and we managed to get a very serious message across. And here are just some stats that show you why we believed that social media is so important. We've got, nearly, 900,000 tweets, almost 3.8 billion, almost 4 billion impressions. We launched our own handle, the It Can Wait handle this year. Again, really trying to continue to be a player in this arena and make this behavior socially unacceptable, like drunk driving. And then we wanted to get some hard stats. Okay, are we really making a difference? We just don't want to make everybody feel good and continue to, preach to the choir. We need to make a difference. But it's kind of hard to prove a negative. So what we did was we worked with departments of transportation for 4 states, Florida, Illinois, Kentucky, and Texas. And we took a look at when our campaign was at the peak, when we were at the peak of social media and advertising, and I believe this was right around the Olympics when we were using a lot of that media buy to, get the message out. Just all of these components, when they were at the height, was there a difference in crash results or, crash data at these different states? And in fact, we found that there was. We at least think it's very promising. Now we've called, we've talked with NHTSA, we've talked with our friends at DOT and different, nonprofit organizations in safety to, discuss these results, GHSA, how can we make these stronger? What components should we add and what should we, detract? And that's what, we're continuing to work on. But Kentucky was the latest model, and that was after we tweaked it when the first 3 came out. And as you can see, that was like at a 10, almost a 10% difference. And I know they're really committed to, distracted driving and to this campaign, but they've really, got a full force effort out. So it was really encouraging to see those numbers. So we're really hopeful that we're making a difference. We're going to continue with our efforts based on that. So success and lessons learned, I think I've helped you, or at least I hope I've helped you see how you can use research, not guessing, not, okay, 5 of my friends do this, this must be what everybody does. So, maybe you can take some of these ideas, take them, back to your school, maybe have your own surveys before you have a summit, see what impressions are, and then after people are done, give them another survey and see if you've made an impact. Are they more aware? Will they continue this behavior? See if you might be making a difference with your messages. I think you are. I think you're making a huge difference with everything you're doing here. So anyway, all of that to say, from our point of view, that whoops, I think I'm going into Kate's. There we go. This is what I wanted to say. Other than that, it's a very lovely picture of you, Kate. That no text is worth a life. So thanks, everybody. Have a good conference.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brands. AT&T's commitment to educating the public on the dangers of distracted driving is clear, and we greatly value your dedication to the issue as well. Next up on our panel is Dr. Catherine McDonald. Dr. McDonald is an assistant professor at the University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing and is affiliated with the Center for Injury Research and Prevention at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. She received her BSN from Villanova University, her MSN from Monmouth University, and her PhD in nursing from the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. McDonald's research has focused on the complex interplay of factors contributing to adolescent morbidity and mortality associated with different types of injury, including violence and vehicular crashes. Her current research on teen risky driving behaviors is funded by the National Institute of Nursing Research. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Catherine McDonald.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. It feels early no matter what time. I think you guys had a really packed weekend of field trip and a long day yesterday. So I'm just thrilled to be here and just so inspired by everyone here, all these, you taking time out of your school day to come here, as the commitment also of the adults, whether they're teachers or counselors, to help get you here and through NOYS. So it's just my background as a nurse, and working with teens, seeing just what you want to do for your peers and for your community is quite wonderful. So I've been asked to talk a little bit about teen brain development and distraction, and focusing in on passengers, which I think the morning presentation that started really showed the effect that passengers can have. So my colleagues, I'm from the University of Pennsylvania at the School of Nursing, and as well as Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And my colleagues at CHOP are thrilled to be supporting NOYS and your summit here today. So you might be wondering, what does nursing have to do with texting and driving or distracted driving? Well, it has a lot to do with it. I've worked in a pediatric intensive care unit. I've worked in a pediatric emergency room, as well as a school nurse at a high school. And so in all of those roles, I have been working with teens and families or patients and families who've been affected by teen driver crashes. And so it's the outside at the school where we really can have the biggest impact on the prevention side. And so it's exciting to be talking here to you today. So I loved the video from this morning asking teens and individuals in the hall, what are the leading causes of death for teens in the United States? And as all of you know here, it is motor vehicle crashes for teens behind the wheel and their passengers. And we can see that homicide and suicide are number 2 and 3 with our teens. And so with the top 3 causes of death for teens in the US, they're largely preventable. And this is important when we think about what is amenable to change. What can we do to prevent these deaths? And so just to set the stage with motor vehicle crashes, because something really important happens with teens right after they get their licenses. So when you're learning how to drive, when you have your learner's permit and with someone's in the car with you, what we call supervised practice driving, you're actually pretty safe drivers, which is surprising to many people. It may not feel very safe to the adult in the car with you who's teaching you how to drive, but overall, your crash risk is not that high. Oh, sorry. Do I need to talk louder? You can just say speak up. Is that okay? Okay, great. So as soon as teens get their license, though, and they're in what we call unsupervised, they're at their highest crash risk. And so we see this curve over the first year of licensure. So the crash risk is at your highest when you first get your license, and then it decreases over those first 12 months, whether mostly in part due to getting experience behind the wheel. And so gaining higher order skills, learning how to anticipate hazards in the field. But what's also happening over that first year is that teens tend to, once they get a little bit more comfortable behind the wheel, to think, well, I can have a few more of my friends in the car. Or, I know this light in my neighborhood. I know how long it's going to stay red, so I can check those text messages, or I can send a text message. So even though we see this really nice drop in crashes over the first year of licensure, what we also worry about is the confidence that teens may gain in feeling to engage in riskier behaviors. So over this weekend and today, you're going to hear a lot about texting and driving and what we call secondary task engagement, engaging with your phones. I'm going to talk a little bit about brain development and peer passengers, because I think it's really important and can't be forgotten when we talk about the higher level issues of distracted driving. So I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds. It is Monday morning of brain development. And I want to keep your interest. So when you think about brain development, you hear things like affective processing of teens and the self-regulation and inability to regulate your moods, and everything's emotion-driven and lacking rationality and decision-making. And it feels like, I don't know how you guys feel as teens, but do you feel like people are talking about your brain like it's the perfect storm and that all these terrible things are going to happen? Well, I don't believe that. It's not all about risks. You all here are a great example about how teens have so many strengths and protective factors that can help them have healthy outcomes. And we don't have to think all about it as risks. Approaching youth is in terms of what are their strengths and how can we produce the healthiest outcomes. That's really important. But we do have to recognize that the teen brain is a work in process. There's over-rationalization of decisions. There's a huge part of it that's emotion-driven. Impulses get in the way. And then when you add peers to the mix, there's difficulty in handling peers and negotiation of decision making and how impulses take over. And so when we think about what's going on in the vehicle, you have some really important decisions are being made in the context of a lot of competing issues going on in the brain. So importantly, I want to talk about what happens with passengers. And so with teens that are 16 and 17-year-olds, what the research shows is that the more number of passengers that teens have in the vehicle, they're higher their crash risk. So you can see from these graphs, if you add 1, 2, 3 passenger, the crash risk goes up. Now, if you have drivers in the category of adults like me, it doesn't matter how many people are in the car. Our crash rate doesn't necessarily change. But for peers, it does. So there's something going on in the vehicle that can add to the crash risk that we have to think about. And so when we ask teens, some work that's done at Children's Hospital, what are some things that passengers do to take the driver's eyes off the road? And yeah, we see in these graphs things like passengers are smoking, or they're drinking, or they're purposefully distracting the driver. Yes, all those things can happen, but teens aren't reporting that overwhelmingly. It really is things like just somebody else was in the car and I was talking to them, or we were listening to loud music. And so we can't always think about passengers as doing something necessarily purposefully risky, but rather just their presence also in the car, what that does for the driver. And so we know also from some research that not all drivers are the same. We see some differences with girls and boys. When girls have peer passengers in the car, we see that in-car distractions contribute more to crashes, where with boys, if they have passengers in the car, speeding contributes more to crashes. And so we see these differences between boys and girls. And I also think that it also lends the difference to that there's individual difference among each teen. There's not a one size blanket fits all for everything. And so importantly, when we talk about driving, we think about those higher level skills of anticipating hazards. And so what does that mean? It's this process of scanning the roadway, looking to see what's out there. You're scanning, you come upon an intersection, maybe there's a pedestrian on the sidewalk, or there's a car that's putting on the brake lights in front of you. And then it's detecting whether, is it a hazard or not, and what do I need to do about it, and then acting accordingly. So there's this whole process that's happening when you're driving. And so with passengers, what happens is that they can interfere with the process of scanning or detecting or the actions that the driver takes. And so we think about how passengers can influence in that place. So I think there's some exciting research coming out looking at teens and driving simulation and looking at their MRIs to see what's going on in terms of the neurobiology of their brain and development and what this means for driving. And we're seeing that social cues and individual differences are important. If you have a risky passenger, if you have a safe passenger, or there's no passenger at all. And the safe passengers really do help lead to the safest outcomes for teens in terms of safer driving practices. We're seeing some great trends. We're seeing that passengers are getting safer. Safety belt use is up. Crashes are down in terms of passengers, as well as drinking and driving is down. But unfortunately, we're also seeing this uprise on the use of secondary task engagement, so using the cell phones. So there's some, out of Children's Hospital Philadelphia, they've done some work called a program called Ride Like a Friend. And it is a program that's to be delivered in school to teens, by teens in that community. And it's actually targeting the passengers. So it's not necessarily the driver, but it's targeting how can a passenger be a safe passenger? How can they encourage the safe driving outcomes of their driver and not distract? And so if you, Ride Like a Friend has lots of ideas about surveys that can be done, programs that can be delivered, advertisements or PSAs that can be done through the school, driven by teens. And so it's some nice resources. In addition, we have over at CHOP, there's a great website not only for teens, but for educators and families about what they can do for teens and driving and distracted driving. Me personally, I'd like to make a plug all for your school nurses when you go back to your schools. I think you have in your school a really strong advocate for your health. Not everybody always thinks about crashes as a health problem. For me, as a public health person, it's completely clear to me what this means for our teens and their health and long-term outcomes. So just tell the school nurse that the speaker at the NOYS conference told you to come bother them. But I think it's a wonderful advocate for you, and you will find that that individual wants to help support you in your efforts of increasing the health of your school community. So thank you so much for your time. I congratulate all of you for being here. It's quite exciting, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr. McDonald. It is exciting to see the research behind the statistics. Now I'd like to introduce you to Jarek Grabowski, Research Director of the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety. As an injury epidemiologist specializing in methodological procedures, Mr. Grabowski is interested in crash causation and outcomes, with an emphasis on risk factors identification and policy intervention. With 10 years of research experience, he has published over 30 original peer-reviewed research articles. He joined the AAA Foundation as the research director in 2010, where he managed large-scale projects in the research portfolio, as well as the identification of research needs solicitation process with AAA, which has led to the selection and approval of such projects as teen distraction, cognitive distractions and in-car technologies, and driver education. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Jarek Grabowski.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, almost had an accident there. Well, I'm excited to be here. This is one of my favorite topics to really talk about because, as one of the previous speakers said, this is something that's 100% preventable. My name is Jarek Grabowski. It has a silent J, and it's pronounced Urek, like you wreck a car. Ironically, that's what I've been doing for the past 20 years. I've been researching car crashes and all types of factors that lead up to it. I currently work for the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety. We're a nonprofit organization that allows me to sit and ask questions about how can we save lives and how can we educate the population about the risk factors of driving. And I get to spend all day answering those questions. Driving, everybody always assumes driving is a very easy task. But when you start thinking about it, it's actually quite difficult. Up on the slide, I've kind of listed what just driving, the act of driving, all the things that you have to deal with. That includes, vision and lighting issues and noise and vibrations and car maintenance issues. And, of course, if it's too hot or too cold, you have to adjust your climate controls. You have to supervise your passengers, especially if you have an 8- and 3-year-old like I do. There's a lot of things that go on with just driving without adding any type of secondary tasks. And so while everybody thinks driving is kind of like as depicted there on the picture there, it really looks more like this. Sun is in your eyes, there's rain on your windshield, there's cars going to and fro. It's a very busy situation that you really do need to have your wits about you. By the way, I was not driving when I took this picture. See. There we go. The idea of driver distraction, it's not a new issue, but lately the temptation has dramatically increased. We now have the ability to listen to music from different sources, everything from your phone to infotainment systems to car radios to CDs, and if you have an older car, a cassette tape. What the heck is that? Let me just say, so this is not really a new issue. It's been around for a long time. In fact, back in 1913, when they introduced window wipers, everybody thought, oh, this is going to be very distracting. It's going to hypnotize the drivers, and everybody's going to be crashing into trees. As time went on, car radios were introduced into the cars and drive-up windows via McDonald's. 83, you started seeing cell phones being introduced into cars. And then 2000, GPSs were all the rage. These were third-party devices that you could bring in. And now what we're starting to see is a lot of new infotainment systems that are really advanced, that provide you with navigation, it provides you with weather reports, music selections, but there's some infotainment systems that you're now being able to reserve tables at restaurants or getting movie tickets and so forth. Now, if you really think about it, the primary point of driving is to get from point A to point B as safely as possible. And you have a big responsibility because you are in charge of your own life. You're in charge of the lives of your passengers, and you're in charge of the lives of the pedestrians and bicyclists out there. You're driving a 2,000-pound vehicle going 25, 35, 45 miles an hour. It's a dangerous situation, and so just the easy act of driving, there's nothing easy about it. One of the reasons I'm so passionate about this is when I started my career, I actually started doing a lot of research in an emergency department down in downtown Baltimore. And one of the very first slides you saw here was, it said something like, research is the basis of everything, something like that. And it's true, especially if you talk to my boss and he's signing my paycheck. But the truth is there's an emotional component. When you see a child, a teenager, come into the hospital and into the emergency department because of a car crash, that is a very emotional, moving thing. And I encourage everybody to volunteer their time to a trauma center and really get to see the actual outcomes. And this is what drives me. This is why my passion is, because these are 100% preventable. The distractions in 2014, there's all types of distractions. There's driving distractions and non-driving distractions. They're starting to be built into cars. They're carried into the cars, via your cell phone. And there's a lot of distractions outside of the cars. Passengers are a big distraction. And now you also have to think about the role of the driver. Is the driver, are they acting as a driver or a mother if they have little kids in the back seat? Are they acting as the driver, or are they your boyfriend or girlfriend? Are they acting as the driver? Is the driver being a faithful employee by picking up their phone and texting their boss and telling them they're going to be in late to work? Remember what I said earlier, the main point of driving is to get from point A to point B as safely as possible. All these other things are just secondary. What is distraction? Hopefully you guys all know this. If you really break it down, there's a cognitive component, there's a visual component, and a manual component. So that's mind off the road, your eyes off the road, and your hands off the road. But not all distractions are created equal. Okay, listening to the radio doesn't really have very many. You don't need to be changing the radio constantly. It's a couple measurements that we have show that it's not cognitively demanding, and visually you get to listen to the radio and look on at the road. But then when you look down here at texting, it involves all three. It takes your hands off the wheel. It makes your brain start concentrating on how you're going to text and how you're going to abbreviate some of those words. And sure enough, it takes your eyes off the road. And so remember, not all distractions are created equal. This is what it looks like in real life. Cognitive, obviously, the driver is not paying attention to the road. Their eyes are not on the road, and their hands are definitely not on the road. Back in 2012, we did a really interesting study that I'll talk a little bit about today. Some driver facts. I think all the previous presenters mentioned some of these things. Teen fatal crashes are roughly 3 times those of other drivers. And why is that? Well, because teens are inexperienced behind the wheel. Their brains are continuing to develop, and teens are avid users of technologies nowadays. The study that we did started actually before 2010, and what we did is we outfitted a lot of cars with video cameras, and every time they were in motion, the video cameras would record. And originally the motivation was to look at the interaction between the parents and the teen student drivers, and we really were interested, are parents good teachers during the time that they're in the car? And so that was for the first 6 months, and then we decided, hey, what happens if we just leave the cameras in the car and watch the teens driving when they get to first drive all by themselves without their parents in the car? And so we did that. 38 of our study participants agreed to allow us to just leave the cameras in and document the first 6 months of their driving without any supervision. And basically what we wanted to do was try to answer 6 questions, and I'll go through them very quickly. Which distracted driver behaviors are most common among these brand new teenage drivers? Well, the use of electronic devices was way up there. We saw that in about 7% of all the video clips that we reviewed. Now, when you exclude the electronic devices, teens were observed engaged in about distracted behaviors in 15% of the clips, and those included adjusting car controls, personal grooming, and eating and drinking. Question 2. Our male teens and teenage females differ, and how often do they engage in distracted driving and the kinds of distractions that they experience? Yes, males and females are different drivers. Females are nearly twice as likely as males to use electronic devices. The males were twice as likely to turn their bodies around while driving. So that's a big issue, because when your torso moves, usually your neck and head move along, and that means your eyes aren't on the road. And when you exclude the electronic devices, females are slightly more likely to be observed engaging in distracted behaviors. 15% for females and about 13% of all the clips that we reviewed for males. Question 3, do distracted driver behaviors vary based on the number of passengers? Yes. This is something that's been known for a while. Electronic devices are most common when electronic device use most common when drivers had 0 passengers. When they had a passenger, electronic device use decreased, but the distraction with the passenger was very notable. And we also noted a lot of loud conversations and a little bit of roughhousing also. This is actually from another study that we did, but I put the slide in here because it really shows the issue with distracted teens and passengers. Every time you add a passenger who's about your same age, you increase the risk of being involved in a fatal crash. If you have 2 or more, it doubles the risk, and if you have 3 or more, it quadruples the risk. Now look at that last car there at the bottom. When you add 1 adult, you actually reverse the trend. And so, it's not that the teens are bad drivers. It's that there's something else in that car that's really distracting them. It's something that's really getting to them, because when their parents are in there, oh my gosh, they're really good drivers. Question 4, are distracted driver behaviors more common during certain times of the day or week, and do factors like the amount of traffic really affect distracted driving in teens? No clear pattern really emerged on weekdays versus weekends. No clear relationship was found between distracted driving and amount of driving of traffic present. And there was some indication that teens limited distracted driving behaviors in rain, but honestly the difference weren't really small. Question 5, do drivers who engage in distracted behavior spend more time looking away from the roadway than drivers who aren't distracted? Yes. Drivers were 3 times more likely to look away from the road when using an electronic device, and they were 2.5 times likely to look away when engaging in other distracting behaviors. Last question, are distracted driver behaviors associated with serious incidents such as events involving hard braking or swerving? What was really interesting, we had a little device in the car that actually measured G-forces, and we were able to see what kind of events were related to those G-forces, and we found out that drivers were 6 times as likely to have a serious incident when there was loud conversation in the vehicle with passengers, and they were more than twice as likely to have a high G-force event when there was a lot of horseplay involved. You could read these discussion and recommendations, but I just wanted to wrap up by saying, this is a serious issue. This is life and death. When you're traveling in a car and you're traveling very fast, you do have a responsibility for your own health, for the health of your passengers, and for the people outside of your car. So I'm really happy to see everybody here and really taking this as a serious problem. If you ever need any information, go to our website. We have all our research there, but it's pretty technical. But look down and you'll find for every research project we come out with, we have PowerPoint presentations. Please use them for any type of education you do with your peers. We also have fact sheets so you can get all the facts for all our different research coming up. One last thing I want to say is that all this research was just looking at teens driving normally. This didn't involve any crashes or anything. We have some research that's going to be coming out probably between now and March of next year sometime, in which we look at teens who actually crash, and we look at about 1,200 actual crashes. And so what we're really going to start doing is documenting how dangerous are these activities in the cars. So keep your eyes open for that, and we should be providing like video clips if you need them for your presentations to talk to your peers. And I think I'm done. Yep.
Thank you so much, Mr. Grabowski. I think it's time for Elizabeth to welcome Secretary Fox.
We are going to hold questions for our panelists until after Secretary Fox. Joining us today is Secretary Anthony Fox from the U.S. Department of Transportation. The U.S. Department of Transportation has made distracted driving a cause we are all aware of and has led the nation in efforts to end this epidemic. Secretary Fox leads an agency with more than 55,000 employees and a $70 billion budget that oversees air, maritime, and surface transportation. His primary goal is to ensure that America maintains the safest, most efficient transportation system in the world. Secretary Fox joined the U.S. Department of Transportation after serving as the mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, where he made efficient and innovative transportation investments the centerpiece of Charlotte's job creation and economic recovery efforts. Prior to being elected mayor, he served 2 terms on the Charlotte City Council as an at-large representative. Secretary Fox is an attorney who spent much of his career in private practice. He has also worked as a law clerk for the U.S. Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, a trial attorney for the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice, and staff counsel to the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Judiciary. Secretary Fox received a law degree from New York University School of Law as a Root Tilden Scholar, the university's prestigious public service scholarship. He earned a bachelor's degree in history from David Zig College. He and his wife, Samara, have 2 children, Hillary and Zachary. We especially appreciate his support in the Teen Distracted Driving Prevention Summit. Please join me in welcoming the U.S. Department of Transportation Secretary, Anthony Fox.
Thank you. Wow, thank you. Thank you very much. It is awesome to be with you this morning at the NOYS Teen Distracted Driving Prevention Summit. I want to thank all of you for being here today. I imagine some of you are missing class to be here, and there are several mentors who are here as well, supporters who are adults who are helping you with the efforts in your communities. But I have to tell you that seeing this display of interest and activism on a safety issue as important as distracted driving is pretty impressive. And so I want to thank all of you for being here. I also want to thank Elizabeth for her wonderful introduction. It was so well done, in fact, that Elizabeth, I'd like to carry you around with me. I think you could do that, do that for a living. We could find a role for you at DOT to do that. We also have some very special members of our team from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, here, and I want to say a particular word to our leader of that agency, David Friedman, who's done such a great job on this. David, where are you? Why don't you raise your hand and give him a round of applause. So I was trying to think about, I grew up in the 1980s. I was trying to think about what the analog to distracted driving might have been at that time. It might have been, having a bag of Wendy's and having to roll down the window with one hand while trying to eat a French fry with the other and still drive, which for some folks is still a distracted driving problem. But clearly technology has introduced a different magnitude of challenge. And to be clear, technology is not inherently a bad thing. The connectivity that we have, the ability to communicate seamlessly that has been developed over the last 30 years is not inherently a bad thing. But when it works across purposes with the safe transportation of young people, or anyone for that matter, and becomes an issue of life and death, we as a nation have to take notice, and we've got to have a conversation about it. And honestly, this issue was, I think, first strongly articulated by my predecessor, Secretary Ray LaHood, who was such an important voice on this issue. But it is an issue that we continue to grapple with as a country. And my instructions to our team at USDOT when I came in about a year and some change ago was to not let up one bit on our efforts to curb and eliminate distracted driving in the United States of America. It's a big issue that we've got to deal with. So let me talk about what we've been up to. The reality is that too many folks think that they can take a glance away from driving, read an email, a text message, or maybe talk on the phone while they're driving, and it won't have any impact on the rest of the folks driving. And the reality is that taking an instant away creates a 23%, you're 23 times more likely to get into an accident if you are involved in a text message or a phone call or something that's taking your attention away from the road. And we find that too often young people who may have been texting while they were in their science class think that when you're in a car and you're no longer stationary but you're actually operating a car, that it's okay to take that second to send the same text message. And we know from the science that's just not true. And we have, unfortunately, too many lives that have been lost already that remind us of that. And too many accidents that have happened, even if they haven't resulted in the loss of life, that are also reminders. The power of what you all are bringing to the table is that we can provide information, we can advocate, we can say the words, but one of the things that helps us deepen this message to the cohort of young people that are coming along is when we have other young people who are talking to their peers and sharing these same stories and sharing the same information and making it so clear that it's just not a cool thing to do to put your life at risk or someone else's life at risk by engaging in distracted driving. And so I want you to understand that from my perspective, you all are at the front lines of helping this country eliminate distraction. Motor vehicle crashes are the leading killer of teens in the United States. And we know that far too often these deaths are caused by distracted driving. And this is more than a statistic to you. I know that already because some of you have lost members of your families. Others of you have lost friends. And so you know in very personal terms how impactful this issue is. And what makes it even more heartbreaking to us at USDOT is that these lives are lost simply because of a momentary distraction. Completely avoidable. Completely avoidable. So our task is to continue to make this clear to your peers. The reality is there isn't a message that you have sent or received on a device or a phone call that is worth a life. And I think that if we said these words to just about every one of your peers, they would agree. But the problem is that everybody thinks they're the ones that can do it without any consequence. And it's that line of thinking that we've got to work to change. So I remember reading a quote from Julio Mendez, one of the teen leaders here, who recently told a newspaper the same thing. He said, they never think they are the ones who are going to get in the car crash. They don't take it seriously, and that is what we are trying to fix. And I say to you, Julio, and to all of you, if we can fix that, we will be a lot further down the road in eliminating distraction. You should also know that President Obama and I are doing everything we can to fix this problem too, as is our entire team at U.S. Department of Transportation. Because like you, we're working on behalf of everyone to ensure that not just drivers, but even bicyclists and pedestrians are assured of safety. Because this isn't just about distracted driving, it's about ending distraction in all forms of transportation. And that actually extends to walking. I'll tell you a story, as a matter of fact. When I was the mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, I used to get up in the morning and I would run. And one morning I was running and came to an intersection. And the intersection had the white pedestrian light, so I had the go-ahead to move through it. And a car moved into the intersection and hit me right on my left leg. Now, in that situation, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I had the light in my direction. I wasn't distracted, and I still got hit. So just imagine if you're going through an intersection, looking at your phone, or talking to somebody, and a car comes in and hits you. We're finding more and more cases of instances like that. And so one area that we're trying to venture into with distraction is not just the distraction behind the wheel of a car, but distraction in every form that it can possibly take to ensure that anybody who's moving, whether they're walking or bicycling or driving a car or whatever, is as safe as possible. So at the end of the day, the work you're doing is going to make a huge difference. This is what I call positive peer pressure. It's the kind of peer pressure that helps people stay alive and helps people avoid accidents and helps people live the kind of life that all of us want to see young people have. And I just want to tell you how much we appreciate it at US DOT. So when you go back to your schools, I want you to share everything you've learned here with your fellow students and let them know we have a 5 to Drive campaign that parents can use to set clear guidelines for driving safely. These are 5 important but obvious rules. They include no cell phone or texting while driving. No cell phone or texting while driving. No extra passengers. No speeding. No alcohol. And no driving or riding without a seatbelt. Can y'all do that? Yeah, can y'all do it? Let's. Yeah. So we're going to work with you. We're going to continue working with you to enhance your efforts. And we appreciate the efforts that you're taking to help enhance ours. And it's going to be really you speaking up, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it doesn't feel cool to say, don't do this because you're putting a life at stake. you may in fact save a life that way. So thank you so much for what you're doing. So proud of you and look forward to seeing the great results of your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Fox, for joining us today and for your support of teen safe driving. It was an honor to have you with us. We would now like to invite our 3D panelists to come back up to the stage, please. We're going to have a very short questioning time. So if our 3 panelists would like to join me back up on stage, that would be great. Who would like to have the first question?
Don't be shy, we'll come to you.
Do we have any questions on the Twitter feed? Oh, sure.
How long does it take to accumulate all that data? Like how many years? Between like all 3 of you, so like the data that is done is like how long is the process?
Would you be willing to repeat that on the microphone so that they can hear it back on the live stream?
Gotcha. Sorry, too loud for me. How long does it take to accumulate all that data for all of the stuff that you have? Like, how long do you go around and ask these people for?
Every research we do, usually we develop questions and we try to find the correct data to answer that question. And so depending on the data that we use, it can take a long time. For example, sometimes we do secondary data analysis on databases that have been collected for many years from NHTSA, the forest data. This particular study that I described today was about 2 years long for the data collection. But there's been other times where if we do a simple survey, it can take just a few months. So it really depends on what type of data we're looking for and how hard it is. This driving data is really hard because the truth is crashes are very rare events. If you think about the millions of miles that are driven every day and the number of crashes, it's a fairly rare event. And so you have to get a huge number of people involved for a very long period of time in order to get enough crashes to make any statistically significant comments about it. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, we're going to ask you to speak up a little on the podium when you... Okay. Thank you.
An excellent question. The Drive Mode app is an actual app that you can download onto your mobile device, and you activate it. And once it's activated, now we have it GPS enabled so that it will start when you start to drive. The hashtag X is more of a social media tool, so you can tell your friends if you're texting or you're tweeting, "Hey, I'm getting in the car, I'm stopping the conversation," or "Hey, gotta go." Hashtag X, people will know that's shorthand for I'm going to be driving now. Thanks.
I only have 3 questions, so please give these 3 a round of applause.